All right, my beloved Madridistas, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Madrid. Sorry I was away for a few days, but it's great to be back. Okay, let me give you guys my thoughts on the match against Real Sociedad last night, but, also more broadly, this was a very, very professional performance, and I think there's some really interesting takeaways, generally, but in terms of players as well. But I have to tell you, I'm starting to become a little bit more positive. I've been a little bit cautious this season with everything that we're facing and every single adversity you can possibly imagine, especially injuries. But I'm starting to see something that I really like, okay? I'm starting to see that hyperbolically resilient Real Madrid that just knows when to step up, knows how to win scrappy matches, where different players pop up all of a sudden, making contributions that you didn't expect. And if it's not one guy, it's someone else. But I'm starting to see that really hardcore, resilient Real Madrid that manages to win against all odds. We've seen this before last year, a couple of years before that. Real Madrid, that when you don't expect it, but they just always find a way. So I'm starting to get really positive vibes. So anyway, let me give you my thoughts on the match, the lineup, which was very interesting. But there's some cool takeaways from this. So anyway, thanks for joining me again. Let's talk about the match last night. Let's get started. All right, Madridistas, welcome back. Okay, let's talk about the match last night in Anoeta. This is historically, Real Sociedad is a very good team. I mean, this is a team that historically plays very well. They tend to be very good on the ball, but they also play with a lot of intensity, especially at home. This is a side that historically has always been very competitive. And San Sebastián is a very tricky place to play. By the way, an incredibly beautiful part of the world. If you haven't been to San Sebastián, you should visit. It's incredibly beautiful. But this is a very difficult place to play, and you know that you're going to have to absorb a lot of pressure. Now, when I saw the lineup, I was really happy to see the lineup. And, in some cases, we were forced to make these changes, but in other cases, it was by choice. But I was really, really happy to see this. And I think it sent a really positive message. First of all, I was very happy to see Enrique out from the first minute. I think this is something that we should do more often. I love this kid. He needs more minutes. But it was great to see him start from the beginning. It was wonderful to see Arda Güler as well. Again, young players like this, they need minutes. And the more minutes they get, the more confidence they build, and the better they play. Asencio played in the right back position. Of course, this was difficult. I think he had a very tricky first half, but I was not unhappy with the experiment. I think it was an experiment that was worth trying out. Asencio maybe doesn't have the dexterity of Fede Valverde, but he is a physical player. He's a quick player, and I don't think it was a bad idea to try it. Now, I do think it's become quite obvious that he's a much better center back. I don't think right back is his natural position, and it kind of shows. But I think it was an experiment that was worth trying. I was also very happy to see Camavinga in the pivot position. This is a player, I know he's been a little bit sloppy just because he came back, since he came back from injury, but he's a player that I love, his dynamism, his speed, his elasticity. So when I saw the lineup, I was very happy. And I think it sends a very positive message that we are Real Madrid. We're going to, we should be able to beat you no matter with any lineup. We should be able to beat you with our B squad. I think it sends a positive message that we trust our younger players, and that we should be able to win no matter what. And I think it's just good to see Ancelotti making proper rotations and using the entirety of the squad. So when I saw the lineup, like I say, I was really happy. This was it was a sort of 4-3-3, but it kind of tended to fade back into like a 4-4-2 with sort of a box in the middle, because Arda didn't play too far up. If you notice, he didn't really go too far up the wing. He felt more like a midfielder. But anyway, I was very happy to see the lineup for those reasons. Now, in terms of the match itself, Real Sociedad, we knew they were going to come out with a very aggressive high press. And in the first minutes, we were struggling because I think considering the amount of pressing they were doing, I thought we were handling the ball quite well because they were pressing with absolutely everything. I mean, it was obvious to me in the first 15 minutes, there's no way Real Sociedad could maintain that level of intensity for the rest of the match. I mean, it was just a matter of time until these players got gassed because in the first 15 minutes, they pressed really, really well. We were struggling to get the ball out. Lunin had to make 2 amazing saves right off the bat. But, like I say, as the minutes went by, that pressing, the intensity started to decline. And then, of course, the goal came in the 18th minute. And this was just a spectacular pass by Jude. Give him credit not just to see the play and see the pass, but to execute it perfectly. Enrique's control with his hip was just fantastic. I love it. Brazilian players sometimes when they need to control the ball, depending on how much they want to take out, how much sting they want to take out of the ball, they can stop it with their thigh, with their back, This was a fabulous control, a directed control with his hip. And then the finish was fantastic. This was such a professional finish. The goalkeeper was approaching. He knew he didn't have time for an extra step, so he used the outside of his foot so that he could, hit it into stride. It was a wonderful finish and a beautiful pass by Jude. And again, this is what Real Madrid has. If we can soak the pressure and we can suffer a little bit, we don't need many chances because we know how to bite. And that's what I mean about reminding me of the classic Real Madrid that knows how to suffer and then knows when to bite to great effect. But the match, and we didn't, we looked dangerous every time. Obviously, after the goal, Real Sociedad, tried to push further up. But every time we stole the ball, we looked dangerous. I thought Ceballos and Jude were phenomenal in the first half, in the middle of the pitch. And like I say, I never really had a feeling that we were going to be in too much trouble. The second half, the only change was Lucas Vázquez for Asensio. Asensio also was on a card, and Lucas probably couldn't have pulled off 90 minutes, but 45 he could. So that was the only change going into the second half. And again, the second half started again with 2 great saves by Lunin. But again, as the minutes went by, you could just feel that Real Sociedad was losing energy, losing intensity. We found it a lot easier to just hold the ball in possession for longer periods of time and just move the ball even laterally. We were getting a lot less pressure. And basically, Real Sociedad was taking a lot longer to steal the ball, but when they had it, they just didn't look that dangerous to me. I felt like in this match we were kind of completely in control of things. We looked very compact, very solid defensively. The level of intensity, I think everybody participated really, really well. In the 71st minute, Enrique came off for Alaba, which made a lot of sense. At this point, you probably just want to lock down the center of the pitch and defend. In the 83rd minute, Arda and Vini came off, and I was a little bit surprised to see Brahim and Rodrigo because that, in the 83rd minute, you're winning away from home. It felt like a slightly aggressive thing to do, a very offensive thing to do. But that happened in the 83rd minute. In the 87th minute, Camavinga came out and Mendy came in, clearly just trying to shut things down. But unfortunately, one of the players that was not subbed was Ceballos. And you could maybe criticize Ancelotti. We know Ceballos has been playing a lot of minutes the last few matches, and he's been working really, really hard. And I'm just thinking, Ceballos maybe should have been a substitution that we would have made. But, hindsight is 2020. But Ceballos stayed on the pitch, and in the very literally the last play of the match, he gets injured. We're going to have to wait and see how bad that is. But really very troubling because Ceballos has brought so much to this team. And that's one of the things that I want to sort of tell you guys. I mean, one of the takeaways to me is that we are starting to look like that incredibly resilient team that just finds resources in different places at different times, but just manages to get the job done. And Ceballos has been a really big part of this because Ceballos, Asensio has been an incredible discovery, but also Ceballos. I think he's been reinvented this season. He's brought us so much more than I think any of us expected from him. So I think it's just very, very positive in terms of Ceballos' play. I'm very happy about that. Now, look, individual players, just very, very quickly. Lunin, I would give him an 8 or a 9. He stopped everything he needed to stop. Very good reflex saves at the beginning of both halves. So Lunin, I thought, sometimes when he's putting the ball into play, he takes a little bit too long, but we're going to disregard that because he saved us last night on a few occasions. Okay, Asensio as right back. Look, I think it was a good idea to try it. But I mean, I think that we can see quite clearly that this is not his natural position. Look, we're already asking a hell of a lot of this kid. I don't think any of us expected to get the center back that we did. But the right back position is different. They did get behind him on a couple of occasions. He felt like he had a bit of trouble backtracking. He just felt softer to me as right back, and I'm not sure that's something we're going to be doing again. We'll probably try to avoid that if at all possible, because the difference that he makes as center back is just so noticeable. But anyway, he gave us 45 minutes and gave us his best. Tchouaméni, okay, now you remember in my last video I said I don't think we're going to see Tchouaméni as center back very often anymore. Well, he played it last night. I was a bit surprised, to be honest. But I mean, obviously, the only reason this happened is because we had to try Asensio on the right. But Tchouaméni played really well. Okay, now we've been critical of him, especially in the center back position this year. But I think last night he had a fantastic performance. I really can't remember too many ball losses, or I just think he had a very, very solid match all around. Rudiger, especially in the first half, I think was very commanding, especially in the air. He always has that kind of incredible physicality and presence that you need, especially when the other team is pushing aggressively like Real Sociedad did in the first half. But I think Rudiger was just sort of solid, as he always is. Fran had... he lost 2 or 3 balls that really kind of upset me. So I think he was a little bit soft defensively. Overall, I think played quite well. Didn't contribute in attack as much as on other occasions. I think he had a solid game, but did have 2 or 3 mistakes that I think were noteworthy. Okay, Camavinga sort of started terribly, but I think grew into the match. He lost a couple of early balls in the middle of the pitch in dangerous areas that really pissed us off as we were watching the match. But I think as things went on, he started to settle into play. His timing improved a lot. And by the time you got to the second half, I think Camavinga had played a very, very good match. With the exception of 2 or 3 mistakes at the beginning, I think Camavinga had a good match. Okay, Ceballos was phenomenal, in line with what we've seen the last 5 or 6 matches. Very quick, excellent in transition, very dynamic, kind of contributing sort of in all parts of the pitch. Ceballos had a fantastic match once again, and I'm really concerned about this injury, and we're going to have to see what comes of that, because I think he had a great match. Jude, once again, I mean, just giving 110% every time he plays. I think his contributions defensively were fantastic. He was maybe less flashy in attack, but again, with Jude, all you need is 1 or 2 moments of brilliance, and he'll change the game. And that's exactly what happened with the pass to Enrique. So I think Jude played another fabulously generous match. He's a player that just gives absolutely everything, protects the ball so beautifully, especially when he receives the ball and he has his back to goal and he immediately gets pressed from all sides. He just has a wonderful way of protecting the ball, spinning out of trouble, and keeping the flow of play. I think Jude was phenomenal, as always. I think Arda had a tricky night, and I think the issue with Arda is, one, continuity. I don't think he's getting enough minutes, and I think that, when he plays, there's an element of anxiety a little bit. I think just because he's not getting the kind of continuity to have a little bit more confidence. Another thing I think is that, we're so used to our wingers being like really speedy, really fast, and taking people on one-on-one, because that's what Rodrigo does, that's what Brahim does, that's what Vini and Kylian do. And Arda's not that type of player, and I think he's more of an interior player. I think he's more of a number 10. He can play further back, he can play a 5 or an 8, but he has a lot of 10, I think, in his natural play, because he's wonderful on the ball. He has great vision, distributes really well. But the one thing that he's not going to bring you is the one-on-one quickness that you get from a Rodrigo or a Brahim. So sometimes I think when we put Arda on the right, we lose a little bit of speed and threat on that wing just because of the way he plays. But I just think Arda would be better utilized more in the interior part of the midfield. But I think he had a tricky night. I think, lost a few balls. But again, I think a lot has to do with the position he's playing and the lack of continuity. So I was very happy that he started, and I want to see him play more minutes. But he didn't have a particularly good night. Okay, Vini had a very good match, and similar to what I said the other day, he didn't take players on as often. I mean, this is what he loves to do, to basically take people on one-on-one, use his speed because he's explosive, and he did on a number of occasions. But I just think he did it less often. So I think once again he played a match very much thinking about the collective, thinking about the team. But he was wonderful as always. Vini was fantastic. And Enrique, I really like this kid, and I just want to see him play more minutes. This kid has, first of all, he has a very natural instinct on the pitch. He knows where to be. He knows when to make runs and where to make runs. He has a very natural kind of killer instinct. I mean, this kid puts an enormous amount of power in his shots. He always knows where the goal is. I think he played very, very well. There was a lot of mobility. He used his mobility to create space for Vini and for the midfielders. I think he played a really, really good match, and he's a killer. He's a killer. He scored 4 goals in the Copa del Rey already, but this is a player that I think we can count on when we need a goal and when we need power up front. I think Enrique is wonderful, and again, I was so happy to see him start, and I think he needs to play more minutes. So I was very, very happy with Enrique. In terms of sort of broad conclusions, like I say, I'm starting to get that feeling. I sort of had that feeling last year, and I had it sort of in the 21-22 season, that you have so many obstacles, and your path to the Champions League final is really difficult, and you have all these injuries. But there's this, I'm starting to sense that really hardcore resilience of a team that knows how to suffer, knows how to take punches, and then knows when and how to bite hard. And that kind of resilience, and also the idea that different players can just surprise you and make contributions way beyond what you expect. And in those seasons that I just mentioned, we had that, right? All of a sudden, the José Luis come out of nowhere, Brahim comes out, different players, Lunin, coming out and making incredible contributions, and I'm getting that feeling again. So I'm just a little bit more positive overall in terms of what I'm seeing. In terms of the Atleti matchup in the Champions League, I'm going to be honest with you. Look, I don't know if you guys watched the Barça Atleti the other night, the 4-4. This was an incredible match. I mean, this was insane. It started 0-2 to Atleti. Then Barça tied it up 2-2. Then Barça went up 4-2. And then Atleti scored 2 in the last 10 minutes. And it ended 4-4. But I think what Atleti showed us in that match is that these guys know what they're doing. Okay, this is a team that is so well rehearsed in a very specific style of play. Like, Atleti will defend incredibly well as a block, and then when they steal the ball, they're very dangerous. Okay, Julián Álvarez is a very dangerous player. Gallagher, they're just, and Sorloth is a very dangerous player. Griezmann's a fabulous distributor of the ball. This is going to be a very, very tough team, but I'm just not afraid of them in the same way that I am in La Liga. And I'm not being dramatic, but this referee issue, it's in my head. I mean, if you play Atleti in La Liga as opposed to playing them in Europe, the difference is incredible. I'm not worried. In Europe, I'm not worried. We are better than they are, player for player. Last time we met, we should have scored, Lord knows how many in the second half. We are a better side. And if we just play with normal refs, I mean, refs can make mistakes, and that's fine. Sometimes they favor you, sometimes they don't. But if we just play a normal match with normal refs, I am very, very confident that we're going to win. It's only in La Liga where, they will sort of, by any means necessary, try to do anything they can to screw us. But in the Champions League, I think we can take them, and I think we can win. So I don't know. I'm getting a lot more positive in terms of what is possible. We know La Liga is going to be tough because I don't know how many more points these refs are going to try to take from us, but I have a better feeling about the squad. I have a much better feeling. I'm starting to see that grit. I'm starting to see that kind of invincibility, like the cockroach that just refuses to die. I'm starting to see that, and that's usually been a really good sign for us. So I've become a little bit more positive in terms of where we are. But anyway, I would love to get your thoughts in the comment section. Again, sorry I was away for a few days, but it's great to be back. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And as always, and forever, a la Madrid.